Kelly Davis, your host of the Untold Miracles podcast, and today I am so excited. We have a true legend on the show. Not only is he the greatest golfer of all time, with 73 tour victories and 18 major titles, including 6 Masters, 5 PGA Championships, 4 U.S. Opens, and 3 British Opens, he is also a businessman, golf course designer, philanthropist, author, husband, father of 5, grandfather of 22. He's known as the Golden Bear. Mr. Jack Nicklaus, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kelly.
It is such an honor for me to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time. I've had the opportunity to meet you and your beautiful wife, Barbara, over the years, thanks to your support of Children's Miracle Network hospitals. And one of the hospitals we raise funds for is Nicklaus Children's Health System. And I want to thank you and acknowledge you for all you've done to create miracles for kids through the Nicklaus Children's Healthcare Foundation.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. We've certainly been a labor of love, and we enjoy it.
Well, I would love for you to tell me you and Barbara's inspiration behind starting the foundation.
Well, the foundation started 1966, maybe. Nan may not like this because she was almost 1 year old, but we're telling her age. But Nan was less than a year old, and she was kept having a choking incident, and we didn't know what it was. And finally, we got her down to Columbus Children's Hospital, now Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus. They discovered that she had inhaled blue crayon into her windpipe.
Oh, wow.
And so they went down this windpipe in this 11-month-old baby with an adult bronchoscope, and of course it broke it up, it dropped it into her lungs, and she ended up getting pneumonia, and we almost lost her. And we just sort of felt that Columbus Children's Hospital at that time saved our daughter's life. Barbara and I, from that point on, said if there's any way that we can help children, that's what we were going to do if we ever had the ability to do so. Well, then the memorial tournament started, and from day one, we've benefited the Children's Hospital there in Columbus, now, as I say, a Nationwide Children's Hospital. And then when we were down here in Florida, and the Honda tournament came to our area, a fellow named Fred Millsaps, who ran their charities, came to me, and he said, Jack, he says, are there any children's charities in your area that we could benefit? We've always benefited children. And I looked at Barbara, and I said, do you want to go for it? And she said, absolutely. And so we formed our foundation. Then that's about 14 years ago. Then Miami came to us, and we developed a relationship with Miami Children's Health Systems out of Miami and Miami Children's Hospital. And after 3 or 4 years, they came to us and said, we think our reach is too regional. We'd like to expand, and we'd like to name it Nicklaus. And they now go to, we've seen patients from all 50 states and 119 countries. And we, too, are a Children's Miracle Network hospital. We've seen a lot of little miracles happen in the last few years at that hospital. It's been pretty special.
Well, I know that you've raised millions and millions of dollars through your foundation, and I know you recently just had the Jake, a golf tournament, named in the honor of your grandson who passed away when he was 17 months old. Can you tell us about that tournament and also tell us about your grandson?
Jake, unfortunately, he drowned in a hot tub. It's a lesson that we should never let anybody happen. He came out of the hot tub, and they put a bathrobe on him, which was terry cloth, and he turned around and went back in the bathtub, and the babysitter who was there did not see it happen, and it just dragged him right down, and that's how we lost him. So we named the golf tournament that we've had, which is our main fundraiser, in honor of Jake, and his memory does live on with that. And this year we raised a little over $3.1 million in our one-day golf event. So that's been a big event that's been supported very, very well.
Jack, on this podcast, we talk about miracles, and as the greatest golfer to ever play the game, I'm sure there have been a few in your career. You did have 21 hole-in-ones. Your first PGA Tour win was in 1962, the U.S. Open in a playoff against Arnold Palmer at Oakmont. Were there any miracles involved in that win?
The only miracle is that I won. But I would go back. I think the first miracle in my life that wasn't a pleasant one. It would happen. My father, when I was about 6 years old, broke his ankle. And the doctor ended up having to fuse his ankle and told him he needed to take up something where he walked. So he took up golf again, and he hadn't played since he was a kid. And that happened to be 1950. and he took me along to carry the bag. That's the same year that Jack Grout came to Scioto. And
your golf instructor.
That's right. And he was he came at the same year. Took up golf in the same year. Jack Grout was a little miracle in my life because he was my teacher for life. And I sort of look at that, how I got started in the game. I then I played all other sports, and I think that I found that my father had played professional football. I was a quarterback, and I found that I was probably hands were too small to be a quarterback. I played a lot of basketball, and I found that I was probably too short and too slow to play basketball. All the kind of things that happened, sort of little miracles in my life that took me down the road towards golf. It's something I could do from sunrise to sunset. Then I would say in 1957, I was at Ohio State University, the first week in school, and I met a young lady named Barbara Nicklaus, who was introduced to me by the gal I was dating.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know this.
Yep, we were going down, and she was in front of a place called Mendenhall Lab, and I walked up, and she was talking to Barbara, this gal named Mary, and Mary introduced me, and I walked Barbara to class, and we married. I already agreed that we were going to date around in college, and so I started dating Barbara, and into that story, and so that little miracle, and I talked about the miracle about Nan earlier, and some of the miracles that have happened in Miami. There's a little gal named Tegan who was a twin, born with one lung and a half a heart, all turned around, and everybody at all the hospitals, everybody had they sent her home to hospice, and they said she'd live a couple of weeks, and a couple of months later she's still living, and her parents tried to find a place for her to go, and nobody would touch her. In Miami, our doctor down there called up and said, "Bring that little girl down here. Let me look at her." And so she went to Miami, and a doctor down there built a model of her heart, went in and operated from the rear, and about 5 operations later, in about 6 months, he turned to the parents. He says, "You take this little girl to go home and grow up with her twin sister." I mean, that to me is a little miracle. And Barbara and I went to see her a year and a half ago up in Minneapolis, and she's now about 3.5 years old and doing great. A little gal named Victoria who came, and it was in Venezuela, who had a horrible heart problem, and then they were treated improperly in Venezuela. Didn't know whether they could get her out of the country or not. Anyway, she got hooked up with us. She came here, and we operated on her in Miami, and she is now another miracle, walking around perfectly healthy. And Victoria, it's really kind of interesting. Victoria wears nothing but sort of low-cut dresses so she can show off her scar, which is her scar of life. Most people, try to hide that. She doesn't. She doesn't try to hide it at all because she thinks that shows her life. And I think it's fantastic.
That's so interesting. I was talking to a miracle kid yesterday, and he was showing me his scar, and he said his scar is his strength, and he really is proud of it. I appreciate you sharing that story. Jack, I want to ask you about April 13th, 1986. You wore a yellow shirt that day in honor of Craig when you won your 6th Masters. Can you tell us about Craig?
Craig Smith was the son of a minister and his wife. There was a church that Barbara grew up at. And I ended up developing a relationship. He had Ewing sarcoma. And so we ended up developing a little bit of a relationship, and we started talking on the phone. And, nice young man. And we had a nice experience. And one day he said to me, he says, after church, "I knew you were going to win today. I wore my lucky yellow shirt." And I said, "Oh, my God." So I start wearing yellow shirts on Sunday. When I thought it was appropriate, I won a lot of tournaments in yellow shirts, and we got around to April 13th, 1986, and it was the Masters, and Craig had been passed about, I think 15 years before that. I turned to Barbara that morning, I said, I had a chance to win the golf tournament. I said, I wonder whether Craig would like to see this yellow shirt again. And so I put on a yellow shirt for that last day at the Masters, and I like to take that as a little miracle that helped carry me through.
I think that's so amazing. I read an article where his mom, Mary Lou, said that she saw the yellow shirt that day and she felt like you were going to win. And I just think that's such an incredible miracle that you were able to win that day and that you were able to honor Craig in that way. I want to talk to you about when you were 13 years old. You actually got polio. Tell me about that experience.
Well, I was 13, and back in those days, a lot of kids got polio, but they really misdiagnosed it half the time. I was sort of sick for a couple of weeks, and I'd lost about 20 pounds, but I sort of was recovering from it. My dad came out and got me off the golf course and told me they had just taken my sister to the hospital, and she had polio.
Mm.
And they took me down to the hospital and did some blood tests and confirmed that I had polio, and I was getting over it. But I'd given it to her, and I ended up I was uncoordinated for about 3 weeks, but I didn't have any paralysis or lasting thing from it. My sister did, but she's fine. Took her a year or so before she was, in pretty good shape. But neither one of us were horribly debilitated by it. But and we were lucky. There were certainly lots of kids that were our age around that time that weren't quite so lucky.
Jack, one thing that you and Barbara are really amazing at is creating miracles in the lives of those around you. And I would love for you to share the story with me back in 1984 when you received a letter from a young Canadian golfer and what you sent back to him. And it's really amazing how this person went on to become a Masters champion.
There was this young fellow who wrote me a letter, and he said, my name is Mike Weir, and I'm 13 years old, and I play golf left-handed. Everybody's trying to get me to change to be right-handed. What should I do? What's your advice? And I said, Mike, do what you think is right for you. And that's what he did. A few years later, when I first met Mike, Mike told me the story, and he stayed left-handed, and he went on to win a Masters championship.
And now that letter is framed in his home. And I think it's so incredible, Jack, that you took the time to respond to him. And it just speaks to your character. You're known on the course as a very classy person. And it really just goes on to show with everything that you and Barbara do in your work. I would love for you to talk to us about the Memorial Tournament. You started it in 1976. What was your inspiration behind that?
Actually, we sort of conceived it in 1966. I was at the Masters, and there was a close friend of mine and his wife were flying down to the Masters, and they got iced up in the airplane, and they crashed over Bristol, Tennessee. I decided I was going to withdraw, and everybody convinced me not to withdraw. I played the tournament and actually ended up winning. I don't know how, but I did. But that night, we sat down and we reflected back on things that where we grew up. Mm-hmm. And Columbus, Ohio, where we grew up, we thought, I'd love to be able to bring something back like the Masters to Columbus, to thank them for what the support that they gave me as I grew up. And so that friend of mine who was there, Ira Young, and I got him to start looking for property in Columbus, and we ended up finding the property we have now. We built Muirfield Village. We did, Joe Dye was then commissioner of the tour. Joe and I conceived the tournament. We had it the Memorial Tournament because it was going to be around Memorial Day, but it was also going to honor the past champions of the past in the game. Nobody had ever done that. So the Memorial Tournament, memorializing those golfers. And it's been very successful. As I said, it's benefited the Nationwide Children's Hospital since day one. And we've raised millions of dollars for that hospital. And we've had a very successful golf tournament and brought back golf to Columbus, Ohio, and the place that I grew up, and I wanted to thank them for their support.
It's so amazing. You actually won the tournament twice, and after, I think, the second time you considered retiring. How did Barbara talk you out of that?
I don't know whether Barbara did or not. I was only 44 at the time. If I'd retired then, I'd never won the 86 Masters.
Jack, of your 18 major wins, is there one that is your most memorable, and were there any miracles involved in that?
Well, I don't think that, it's like what's your most memorable or your favorite. That's like asking who your favorite child is.
Okay, it's not a fair question.
That's not a fair question because they're all very special. I mean, obviously the 86 Masters I was past my prime and nobody thought I could win, probably including me. And that was probably the one miracle that I had. But maybe they were all miracles. I don't think they were. You have to have some kind of a miracle to win golf tournaments. and beat. Then they got 144 guys or 150 guys sometimes start out, and to be the lone one at the end of the day, I guess that's a minor miracle to start off with.
You shot 7 under that day. Would you say that's one of the best rounds of your life?
Well, it was a pretty good one. I think I was even par through 8 holes and played 7 under the last 10 on a pretty stout golf course at Augusta National, and I was pretty much out of playing golf then. I wasn't real sharp, but I remembered how to play it. I remembered how to compete, and I remembered how to keep my composure, and I finished the golf tournament up properly and won.
Jack, in 1972 and 1973, you had 7 wins each year. What would you say was the reason why?
Well, I think you look at most golfers, they're generally in the prime of their career, their early 30s, and certainly 72 and 3 were years that I played very well and was strong, young, still was very eager to win, very eager to play. I was just very successful. It's one of the times that I worked pretty hard.
Over the years, you've received numerous awards, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Congressional Gold Medal. Is there one award that stands out to you and is most close to your heart?
Oh, I think all awards are very special to you. But, I think that on my 75th birthday, John Boehner told me they had an American flag over the Capitol building in my honor on my 75th birthday. And I have that flag in my office, and that's pretty special to have the American flag there that's flown over the Capitol building for you.
Before we end, I just have a couple quick fire questions for you. What are you and Barbara most looking forward to right now with your foundation?
Well, looking forward to continuing to help kids and continuing to be in a position in as many places as we can to be able to continue to help kids. Whose
golf game impresses you the most right now?
Well, I don't know. There's so many good young kids out there today. It's pretty hard to say which one. It seems like there's a different one every week that impresses you. I think there's a fellow that played pretty well last week called Tiger Woods, even though he didn't win. I'm very impressed with what he did. And then I'm very impressed with the Justin Thomases and the Jordan Spieth and the Ricky Fowlers and the Jason Day. I'm sure I've missed some here, but all these young kids have been really good, and they seem to get it that the tour does raise a lot of money for charity, and they've all participated and worked very hard to help people whenever they can.
Jack, you have over 400 golf courses. I've played one of those, Red Ledges, which is very challenging. What's your favorite course? Do you have a favorite one that you've designed?
Well, that's like, who's my favorite child? I got about 400.
So you're not going to say the Memorial?
No, I can't do that. Certainly Muirfield, I've spent a lot of time out in the Bears Club down here in Florida. I've spent a lot of time, but they're all my children, and I try to treat them equally and try to make sure that each one of them, if they have problems, that I'm there for them, and that's what you do.
On May 26th, is there anyone in particular that you'd like to see win the Memorial?
I don't have anybody in particular. I don't really try to pick favorites. I just I go back and watch them play and watch them go and see all these young players come along and have them play well. And I just enjoy watching it and be part of it and wish the one that plays the best golf wins.
All right. For my final question, if there were 3 miracles that you could create in the world today, what would that be for you?
I think it's probably all goes back to children again to me. I mean, there's a lot of things you want to have in this world that you have, but our focus has been on kids, and I would like to see the next 3 children that come along that we have the opportunity to be able to help, that we see them get well and live a happy, prosperous life, and we just want to see them keep happening because it's we love kids, and we love seeing them grow up and succeed in life. It's all very special. It's all a miracle coming from above.
Well, thank you so much, Jack, and please give your beautiful wife Barbara a hug from me. Tell her hello. Send her best wishes from Marie Osmond as well, our co-founder. And once again, thanks again, and have a great day.
Okay, Kelly. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Untold Miracles. We're so grateful to have your support, and we would love it if you could go to iTunes and leave a review. If you have any questions, comments, ideas of special guests you'd like to see on the podcast, please email me at kdavis@cmnhospitals.org. And if you'd like to make a miracle in the life of a sick kid, go to cmnhospitals.org and donate. Thanks again for your support of the Untold Miracles podcast.